So it's a huge failure, the story of Vincent and Henri, and it's why just 1 year after they created the PGHM, the Mountain Rescue Unit, just to face such event and to succeed. The PGHM is a totally fully dedicated unit for the mountain rescue in the Mont Blanc area, but also abroad, everywhere in France. And it's a 100% unit of gendarmes, which is a military police dedicated to do the rescue in one side, and the other side is to do investigation to understand what happened. So of course Chamonix is the core of this story of alpinism because everything started here with a connection with people from England. They opened this wonderful story of alpinism. Everything started from here in this valley with all these summits around us. We used to think that mountain rescue started with the history of alpinism, and perhaps the first ascent of the Mont Blanc in 1986 was the beginning of this story. But in fact, if we look at the story, humans used to cross the frontiers, the borders, and move from one country to the other one, and then accident happened in the very whole time. And we have the first story perhaps with Otzi. The body was discovered in the 19th, and it's a story of 3,500 years ago, so close to the Neolithic period. And this guy lost his life at 3,200 meters high. He was more than 40 years old, well equipped for this time to climb, with good shoes, good equipment, and so on. It's a crazy story. Then, of course, you have also all the armies. So Roman legion, Hannibal, Napoleon who crossed, and we have a lot of frostbite accidents during this time. So we have all these stories before starting the alpinism period, which is just 2 centuries ago. It's a very new one. And of course, from this time, with the increase of population who climbs the mountain, we have more and more accidents in the Alps and everywhere. One of the first disasters in the Mont Blanc range, Mont Blanc area, was in 1820. It was just a couple of years after the first ascent of the Mont Blanc, and this caravan of more than 20 people, 2 clients, and more than 17 guides go to climb the Mont Blanc. And they have a decision to take. The guide was not so positive about the condition, and they say we have to turn back and go back in the valley. But the 2 clients push hardly the guides to go on and to go to the top of the Mont Blanc. And they decided to go on, to go up in the mountain. And just a couple of hours after, a big avalanche threw down all the caravan, all the guides, all the clients, and 3 guides died in this accident. So it was one of the first disasters in the Alps. And according to the story, they created the first guide company in the world here, so just 2 centuries ago, Chamonix Guide Company, which is the first one, just to protect families after accident. The story of the guide company is not to share the job and to drive people in the mountain, it's just to protect families. This is the early beginning of the story of guide profession. So this is one of the main rescue we remember usually when we are talking about mountain rescue. From 1.5 centuries, it was almost the same organization. Mountain guide tried to help climbers and mountain guide too, with just a few equipment, without any helicopters. The big change of the story was when we introduced the helicopter to play. And of course, this story was very important too. It's Vincent and Henri stories. It's a sad story too. In fact, these 2 young people who want to climb the Mont Blanc in winter time, and it was in 1956. They go up in the mountain by the Brinva spur. The first hour was fine, and then the storm came. We have no news from Vincent d'Henri during 9 days. In the valley, the guide company say in wintertime we don't go to rescue people. When you practice mountaineering in wintertime at this period, you need to count only on yourself for any support and rescue. And so nothing happened during the first days, and then Vincent d'Henri appears in the middle of the north face of the Mont Blanc, still alive, 9 days after the beginning of the story. And then the guide company said, no, we don't go for the rescue. So nobody wants to go to save Vincent d'Henri. So the pressure, the media pressure grew up, and then people say, okay, we have to do something. And then they asked to the army to try with helicopter. And they involve one helicopter, but with zero experience about high altitude, performance, and so on. And then we have 2 additional days to prepare the mission and so on. So we are at day 11, and then they start to go with helicopter. And just when they arrive on site, on the north face of the Mont Blanc, they crash the helicopter close to Vincent d'Henri. So we have this crazy picture of Vincent d'Henri still alive, and then we have a big dilemma. There is a pilot and the mechanical engineer and 2 guides from the army. So what we can do, we have to rescue the pilot and the mechanical engineer, and we are only 2. So we cannot rescue Vincent d'Henri and the pilot and the mechanical engineer. So they have to choose. It's a very difficult choice they did at the moment, and they have to rescue first the pilot and the big. So they moved during 2 days by feet to the Valo hut. They have to move up during 2 days, 2 additional days to rescue them. So it was kind of a crazy story. But just before leaving Vincent d'Henri, they put them inside the helicopter, the crashed helicopter, to protect them. And they say, we will be back in a couple of days. So it's a kind of promise of coming back for the spirit of solidarity. So they carry the pilot and the mechanical engineer to the refuge, and then the military officer down in the valley say, okay, we have to stop now this rescue because it's a big mess. So we have to stop this. And then they let Vincent and Henri in this helicopter, dying alone, without any support of nobody. So it's a huge failure, the story of Vincent d'Henri, and it's why just 1 year after they created the PGHM, the Mountain Rescue Unit, just to face such event and to succeed. In this case, to avoid that people are just close to the valley, to Chamonix city, and they can, in the 50s, die just at 2 kilometers from the valley. So the end of the story was a positive one, because a new organization grew up from this sad story, and we have the creation of the PGHM as a success, as an answer to this very sad story. So of course today, helicopter is just a basic tool for everyday rescue. So 95% of the rescue has been done with helicopters, but still 5 to 8% of rescue is done by feet. And we have this crazy rescue done this summer, just a couple of months ago, when the 2 guys, like Vincent d'Henri was at the top of the Mont Blanc, just so close to die. One was totally exhausted, unable to walk and to move. The other one just a little better, and the storm was coming strongly with lightings and so on. So they have to do it quickly and to try to take the window to rescue them, and they did it. So they move with helicopter as much as they can, close to the clouds. Then they start by feet, moving to the top, and then they choose not to take only one, because it was the dilemma of this story was, can we succeed to take 2 people only with 2 or 3 mountain rescuers, or can we take 2 and we will succeed? And they tried to do 2. It was just close to, yes, perfect story, because they succeed to go down, to carry them down. Then the lighting just came a couple of minutes after, so it was just a perfect story. And compared to Vincent d'Henri, the rescue of this summer was just a perfect story about coordination, commitment, risk-taking, close to something perhaps difficult, and it's exactly the spirit of the mountain rescue. So of course, doing alpinism, to climb the mountain, it's a very deep commitment of yourself as a responsible for. When you climb a mountain, you are responsible for your life, for the life of your partner, and the life of the mountain rescue. You can commit if you have any accident. So it's a kind of chain of responsibility. And we have to think that everybody is responsible for this story. Not only one part is a mountain rescue, one part is a climber. It's a common and global story, and we have all our piece to play in this story. I wrote 2 books about mountain rescue. The first one, a long time ago. I wrote it because I was sure that we have to tell the story from inside. A lot of observers, journalists and so on talk about mountain rescue, but without any experience from inside. So my first book was a testimonial about how we can explain from inside the story. It was in extremis. The second one was perhaps more for everyone who want to discover the mountain rescue. So not so deep as the first book, but this one was just to discover the link between the story of alpinism and the story of the mountain rescue, because there is a strong connection between the 2 stories, of course, and I like to reconnect the different parts of history.